What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Atlantic Files, the number one podcast on the number one division in the NBA, brought to you by the Underdog Sports Podcast Network. As always, joined by your host, only singular host this week. It is me, Alex Fishbein. Dennis and Mike, they need another week to recuperate from a big summer of things. A lot of events going on, ranging the gambit of everything. So sometimes you just need to get away. Last week, trust me, as much as we love doing the podcast for everyone, all of you that listen, all of you that tune in and everything, with the doldrums of the offseason, with not much news going on, especially with all these trades being at a stalemate at this very second, sometimes we just have to, take a week off and then come right back to deliver you guys some new content. So we are back this week. Well, just I am back this week. We're going to have a bit of a shorter episode here, but for all of you that are listening on Spotify, on Apple, on Google Podcasts, please share it with a friend. That helps us out greatly to get on some of those top podcast charts. And if you rate and review, that helps us as well on all of those as well. You can rate and review on Spotify now as well for people that might not know. You can do that as well as the Apple Podcasts now. And for those of you tuning in on YouTube, make sure you subscribe below. If you enjoy the show each week, we'll be bringing you always new episodes. Like I said, during the off season, if there's really nothing going on, sometimes we might have to skip a week, but it's usually every single week. We come here with a new episode. It's anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half most of the time. And we will be putting out more shorter content for those of you that might not want to stick through the entire show. Sometimes we will throw out some segments from an episode as a shorter clip. Sometimes throw out some YouTube shorts as well, whether it be highlights from the teams from the Atlantic Division, whether it be some of the things we talk about like Zion and his baby mama drama. There's a lot of stuff that we put out there on our YouTube, so make sure you subscribe. We are on our way to 500 subscribers. Thank you to all of you that have subscribed so far. So now that we got some of that, checklist stuff out of the way, let's talk about Team USA. Now, I want to, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put some highlights from the game up while I talk about the game. It was a great first game, in my opinion. Now, could the first half have gone, a little smoother, a little better? Yeah, for sure. It definitely could have. The first half was, a lot of it was going the way of the Puerto Rico. There were a lot of times where the Team USA just, wasn't really locking down their man. Sometimes they were just getting a little lost running around screens. The offense was still okay. I mean, they were still, even when the US was down a little bit in this first half, they were still able to hang right there with them, which is what made this a blowout in the end. But the thing was that throughout the first half, you could see the team getting better and better, gelling more and more. The chemistry was just really starting to go off the charts there. The defensive rotation started looking even better. The ball movement on offense, the hustle for the loose balls, all of that just looked very good, and it looked very promising. Now, of course, Puerto Rico is not one of the stronger international teams. We all know that, especially when one of their best players, Alvarado, is out right now. I will give a shout out to Tremont Waters, though. Played for the Celtics a little bit, mainly for their G League team when he was drafted there a few years ago. He looked especially pretty good in the early goings of this game, got some buckets himself, and really showed that he can find his spots even as a very undersized point guard. But with that being said, the Team USA was just still just dominant in the end. They were able to pretty much get to any spot they wanted. They could find the open man more often than not. Tyrese Halliburton is one I wanted to bring up. Now, he didn't score all that much in this game. He wasn't tasked with being a scorer as much. He was really doing a little of everything. He was really dishing out the ball. He got some rebounds, got some blocks, got some steals. I'm trying to pull up the box score right here. Let me see if anyone has it. I'm sure somebody has. Let's see. There was a game cast. All right, this works. So Tyrese Halliburton came off the bench, played 21 minutes in this one. Shot 3 for 5 from the floor, 1 for 2 from deep. So he only had 7 points. However, he was a plus 24 on the court, being the highest plus minus of the team in this game. Second being Jalen Brunson at plus 23. He had the 7 points. He had 12 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 block, only 1 turnover. And really, he just seemed to be the dynamic glue guy for this team that could really do anything that they really needed him to. But the distribution was obviously at the top of the list in this one. Now, the good thing is with this team, there's no superstar. I would not qualify any of these guys at this very moment as a superstar. Anthony Edwards, very good star-like player. Halliburton, I think he's on his way to being a star player, if not already a star. Brandon Ingram, when he's healthy and at the top of his game, he is a star. They are stars on their teams and in their own right, but this team does not have a superstar. They don't have a Kevin Durant, a Damian Lillard, a LeBron James. They don't have these guys that are your prototypical superstar. However, they have a lot of bona fide scorers. Anthony Edwards can score with the best of them. Mikal Bridges can score from all 3 levels on the court. Halliburton can still score no matter where you put him. Brandon Ingram is a very, very good scorer from anywhere on the floor. Jalen Brunson has shown the past few seasons that he can score with any other guard you put him out on the floor with. And on top of that, Austin Reeves, coming off the bench, as he's still a solid scorer himself. We saw what he could do with the Lakers, especially in the postseason and everything. Austin Reeves is a quality player. Cam Johnson can come in, get you some threes, get you some mid-range buckets, some hustle dunks and things like that. Banchero, fresh off Rookie of the Year, then coming in and showing you the full display, the full package of everything he can do in just 16 minutes. He can get you some inside scoring, some distribution, and he was even showing some really good hustle on defense as well. Walker Kessler is an inside presence, nothing to scoff at all. He can get you some blocks at the rim. Jaren Jackson Jr., Defensive Player of the Year. A lot of stuff he can do for you on the defensive end, but also give you in terms of rim running, post, even hitting a couple threes if he wants to. A lot of these guys are very versatile. Bobby Portis is the oldest guy on the team, I believe. And he's another guy that is mainly a Swiss Army knife, but also a bulldog when it comes to the defensive side of things. He will give you his all every single time. And that's really what this whole team feels like to me. And Josh Hart didn't even play. But this, this whole team feels like to me a team that will actually do and play for each other. They will do anything you ask of them if it means winning the basketball game, which I think is sort of a breath of fresh air for this team. Like, it's not like they're coming out there and just rolling out star power. It's not like, all right, we're walking out with LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant, all these guys. We're not walking out with, the cream of the crop. We're walking out with a lot of young, budding stars, a lot of guys that can do a little bit of everything, that'll give you the hustle plays on both sides of the ball, that'll run through the screens, that'll go over, go under, run through pin downs, run around different screens, get to their spots, play post defense, play help defense, bust their butt on the boards. That's what it seems like to me this team is. And it's really fun to watch. Now, and I'm not usually one of those guys that are like, oh, I just like old school basketball. I can't stand all these newfangled 3-point chuckers and all. No, I'm not that kind of person. But this was a lot of just good basketball to watch, if you ask me. Just a lot of selfless, throwing alley oops, finding guys in the corner, just really having fun with it. And it was, like I said, just a breath of fresh air. And I really like the prospect of this USA team. Obviously, there's going to be bigger tests than Puerto Rico. They have another friendly game on Saturday against Slovenia, which would be Luka Doncic's country. I mean, who knows if everyone is going to play, big minutes or whatever. It's still an exhibition game to get fired up for the FIBA World Cup, which I believe starts on August 25th. So still have time for that. But I'm excited to see this team against like the top international competition because I think they can play very, very well. Especially, a lot of people have talked about this team being undersized, which sure, they don't have the biggest of the big centers or anything like that. But Walker Kessler, Jaren Jackson Jr., Bobby Portis are guys that can still hold their own. Especially Jaren Jackson and Walker Kessler are very good inside defensive presences, also good presences on the boards, and then Portis helps you on the boards as well. But you even have guys just like in this game, Jalen Brunson, of all people being one of the smallest guys on the court, had 12 rebounds to go along with 11 points, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, only 2 turnovers. I mean, he only shot 3 for 8 in this game, but that's not going to happen every game. We all know that. Mikal Bridges, an efficient 6 for 9, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals. A lot of things that Mikal is going to give you usually night in and night out. Brandon Ingram didn't have his best shooting night either, but still put up 11 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks. Jaren Jackson Jr., 2 blocks, 7 rebounds to go with 12 points. And rounding out that starting 5, Anthony Edwards was 7 for 13 with 15 points, 4 assists, 4 steals, 1 block, and 2 rebounds. So, as I said, these guys are just getting to it on both ends, and it's just fun to watch. And then I do want to give a shout out. I touched on it a little earlier, but Cameron Johnson off the bench, 19 minutes, 7 for 10 from the floor, gave you 6 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block, 15 points. Really, these contributions just come from everywhere. I mean, the only person to not score was Josh Hart, and that's because he didn't get in the game. There's still, probably don't want to like really put him in harm's way just yet. I think he was working on. I feel like the last time I checked, he was not like fully rehabbing anything, but just they had a little bit of a precautionary, just like letting him rest a little bit. But either way, everyone was scoring. Everyone was able to contribute in more ways than just one. There was a lot going on that would at least give anyone confidence that this team can do well in this international competition. So I'm excited. I'm very excited to see how the exhibition game goes against Luka Doncic, see what the guards that we have can do against top guards and top players for other countries. I mean, I'm sure Jalen Brunson will have a pretty big scouting report on Luka Doncic being his teammate for a while. So there's also that to look forward to. With that being said, let's move forward here. Pascal Siakam, the latest news. So we talked about Pascal Siakam a little bit over the last few episodes. And the latest news is that he has not had contract extension talks with Toronto. According to Shams Charania, I don't want to butcher his name, but everyone in the basketball world knows Shams. They haven't had any substantive discussions on a contract extension. Sources tell Shams the Siakam is eligible for a up to a 4-year, $192 million extension. And on top of that, Shams was also told that Siakam has never actually requested a trade. But as of right now, the Atlanta Hawks have been the strongest suitor for him. Their offer was a package built around DeAndre Hunter, AJ Griffin, and draft picks, which, if I'm Toronto, unless you're giving me a boatload of first round picks, I don't know if I'm really doing that for Pascal Siakam. Now, the issue with that is that the trade market has been watered down for Siakam ever since he talked about not planning to extend with any team that trades for it. So obviously it's a big risk. You're getting a guy that is on, I'm pretty sure he's on an expiring contract already. I think this coming year is his last remaining year. Let's see. Yes. So this year is his last year on his contract. He's set to make $37.9 million, which in the grand scheme of things, especially with some of these contracts that have been given out lately, really isn't that much money for an all-star power forward like he is. So the trade market really, for lack of better terms, just dried up, because when you have a guy, so he's still 29, he's not in his 30s just yet. He only has the next year remaining on his contract. And he is kind of that in-between type of player that's like a power forward center. His three-point shooting isn't exactly good enough to make him a stretch forward or a stretch five, but he can do a lot of things, both, on the fast break, in the post, from the perimeter moving into the post, but sometimes even off the dribble, whatever it may be. He can give you a lot of different things, just not as much of a three-point shooting threat. Last season was he kind of like regressed from attempting so many threes. He did attempt the most amount of field goals per game that he has his entire career, still put up 48%, but went down to a 32.4% on threes on 4 attempts a game. Now, his best season percentage-wise was back in 2018-19. That was when he hit 36.9% on 2.7 attempts a game. The next year after that was his most attempts per game, which was 6.1, and he shot 35.9. So both of those seasons, he shot better from three. But ever since then, he's kind of been shaky. 2020, 2021, when he played 56 games, he only shot 29.7%. Not last season, but the season before, he shot 34.4, and then last season 32.4. So his three-point shooting is something that the defenders can live with. If you are leaving Siakam out on the perimeter and you're saying, hey, I dare you to beat us by shooting threes, I would say probably like 8 to 9 times out of 10, he's not going to beat you shooting threes. So if a team that wants to trade for him isn't already a strong three-point shooting team, or if they have to give up a lot of their strong three-point shooters, it's probably not going to be the best deal to grab him to try and win a ring. He's a solid defender. I wouldn't say he's one of the best defenders out there. He's just an all-around solid player. Last year, highest points per game at 24.2. He also put up 7.8 rebounds, 5.8 assists per game, turned the ball over 2.4 times a game. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Siakam all around is a very good player. Would I call him elite? No. Would I call him a player that you could just plug into a team and you're automatically going to win a ring? No. You need a quality team around him. Always. Because, I mean, we look at the Raptors in the playoffs since Siakam has been there. So he's had 5 playoff runs with the Toronto Raptors since he was drafted in, what draft was this? 2016. One of them being his first year, which he didn't really play much at all. Second year, played a little bit more, only 17 minutes a game, but, not much to really affect all that much. Then the year they won the ring when they brought Kawhi in, he started all 24 games, played 37 minutes a game, averaged 19, 7, and almost 3 with 1 steal. Percentages were looking pretty good from the field and from the free throw line. 3-point, not so much. Then the 2019-20 season, he shot horrendously from the floor and from 3. 39.6 from the floor, 18.9 from 3 while attempting 4.8 a game. That's just, that's more hurting your team than it is helping at that point. 17 points a game, 7 rebounds, almost 4 assists, 1.1 steals. And then the 2021-22 season, he was playing 43 minutes a game, which was crazy. Still, 3-point shooting wasn't good at all. Put up higher averages, but mainly because he was partly the whole team. I don't want to say he was the whole team because obviously, Van Vliet was still there. OG was still there. They had other guys there, but Siakam was the number one. And if Siakam has to be your number one player, your chances of winning a championship just aren't that high. I think that should be widely accepted at this point, that if he has to be your go-to, your number one scorer, your number one for everything, then your season's going to end up a lot like it did for the Raptors last year. And I know a lot of people like to put some blame on, not some blame, but a lot of blame on Nick Nurse for not playing younger players or not, rotating out the starters enough and having them play heavy minutes. But if you look at the team, there really wasn't much else to play outside of the starting 5 other than maybe like 1 or 2 other guys. Like, if we go back and look at this roster from last season, right? So you had the starting 5 in Siakam, Van Vliet, OG, Scotty, and most of the time before Jakob got there, it was Gary Trent, and then sometimes it was Precious Achiuwa. That already is an okay starting 5, but it's nothing amazing. They bring in Jakob Poeltl. It gets a little better because finally they have a true center, so they can put Siakam at the 4. But then Scotty Barnes at the 3 is okay. I feel like Scotty would probably be better at, I don't know. I feel like Scotty would probably be better at the 4 and letting him be a point forward rather than, throwing him randomly at point guard or even at small forward. I just think he's better. His build, his style of play, all of that stuff I think is better suited as a point forward type of player. So they experimented because, they needed to. But outside of them, you got Chris Boucher, Otto Porter was hurt all year, Thaddeus Young, Christian Coloco started at the very beginning of the year because they thought they were gonna, have him as their true center. That didn't really work out. They had Will Barton for a little bit, who barely got on the floor. Malachi Flynn is a guy that a lot of people think, has the talent to play more. However, last year he played 53 games, only played 13 minutes, but shot 36% from the floor, 35% from 3, 4.6 points, 1.4 rebounds, 1.3 assists a game. But obviously a very small sample size, but Malachi Flynn has been the definition of inconsistent, especially when, anytime he was getting some more minutes. Now, his rookie year was the most amount of minutes he got. It was right below 20 minutes a game. He even started 14 of the games that he played in, and even then shot 37.4% from the floor. He has not shot 40% or higher in any season that he has played. And if you're trying to give a guy more time and let him take the reins of maybe even the backup unit, you need someone who's going to shoot at least 40% from the floor. It's been 37.4, 39.3, 36.0. 3-point, 32.1, 33.3, 35.3. At least that part has grown. But the fact that his overall percentages have like fluctuated and ultimately declined, and he's still only a 6'1" point guard. Like, you got to be doing Fred VanVleet type of numbers if you're going to be an undersized point guard. And Fred VanVleet did have a down year last season, but he at least has more on his resume to prove that that's not a consistent type of year that he's going to have. So I don't want to hear all the Malachi Flynn should be getting more minutes, because, to be honest, all of the stats and all of the eye test says that he doesn't. If you were going to make an argument, I'd probably say Delano Banton probably should have gotten a little bit more minutes. We'll see what happens with him now that he's moved teams. But they also had Jeff Doughton, Ken Birch, Ron Harper Jr., Justin Champagnie, Joe Wieskamp. So you tell me who Nick Nurse should have really been playing outside of the starting five. Because, like I said, outside of the starting five, and then maybe one or two others like Precious or Jakob Pertl once he came in, there really wasn't anyone else that's going to be much better. I hate to break it to people, but that there wasn't. So now with Siakam, if you're Toronto, hell yeah, you got to get whatever you can get for him. Especially if the market isn't hot right now because he's threatening to not sign an extension. At this point, it probably is their best bet to wait for during the season and ship him out then, when another competitive team maybe loses someone due to injury, or a fringe team starts to really show that, they have what it takes to get to the postseason. They just need one more all-star caliber player. Then they might be willing to part with some more picks or whatever it may be. That's going to be the best course of action for a Siakam move, because in the offseason right now, before anybody knows what they have, they're a lot less likely to trade for somebody that isn't promising to re-sign when they only have this next year left. And if you're going to give up a bunch of assets for it, you need some sort of reassurance that it's not going to come back to bite you. So in terms of Toronto, you at this point might as well hold on to him. See what happens during the season and get some value out of him. So moving back to a little bit of Team USA topic, Trae Young has been getting dragged, specifically by Tim Bontemps from ESPN, when I forget what show or podcast he came on, but he was talking about how Trae didn't make it to Team USA because the guards that are there they thought were better, and then Bontemps started saying that he would take any guard on Team USA over Trae and all sorts of stuff. Now, I personally haven't always been the biggest Trae fan. It is tough to say specifically that Trae is not as good as Brunson, Halliburton, Brunson, Halliburton, Austin Reeves, whoever. But the thing is, right now, Brunson had a very good year last year, right? Halliburton is an up-and-coming star. And Halliburton can give you a lot of versatile looks, not just on offense, but especially on defense. Taller, bigger, longer. He just checks all the boxes that Trae Young doesn't on the defensive end. And he can give you just as good, if not better, distribution skills. So I think the argument really comes down to Brunson versus Trae. Now, Brunson last year averaged 24 points, 6.2 assists, 3.5 rebounds. turned the ball over 2.1 times a game, shot 49% from the floor, 41.6 from three. In comparison, Trae scored 26.2 points a game, 10.2 assists, 3.0 rebounds, 1.1 steals, turned the ball over 4.1 times a game, shot 42.9% from the field, and 33.5% from three. If we're just talking straight efficiency off the rip, I mean, Brunson is way more efficient. That's just, that part is not up for debate. Defensively, now, nobody has accused Jalen Brunson of being an all-star defender. He is undersized, just like Trae. I mean, maybe not just like Trae, because at least Brunson has more strength and weight to him where, he can't be posted up as easily by other guards. He can hold his own. I mean, he's 6'1", 190. Trae Young is 6'1", according to Basketball Reference, 164. Trae Young weighs less than I do. And I'm only 5'9". And I'm not, I'm not a professional athlete. But I'm also not out of shape. So it's, I guess what it comes down to me is, I wonder if Team USA just valued, team play, efficiency, and defense. Because if you come to me with those three things, I am probably not going to say Trae Young fits that. I mean, if somebody made the argument that Trae Young isn't actually a great shooter, he's just a huge volume shooter, I don't have much of an argument against that. If we look at the 5 years he spent in the league, the best year he had shooting was 38.2% from three, right? The best year. That was 2 seasons ago. Highest points per game, 9.7 assists, really great year. All-star year. He did get selected as an all-star. Starting from his rookie year going up until the current year, 32.4, 36.1, 34.3, that 38.2 that we talked about. Last year, 33.5. Now, his overall field goal percentages aren't bad. 41.8, 43.7, 43.8, 46, 42.9. His three-point attempts per game are like 6, 9.5, 6.3, 8, 6.3. This man does chuck it. I mean, he's chucking from three. And you're bound to make a couple when you're chucking that much. And if you compare that to guys, let's compare to Jalen Brunson, because that's who we're talking about. Last season was his most threes attempted per game at 4.7 and hit 41.6%. He averaged 2 made threes a game. Trae Young last season averaged 2.1 made threes a game because he chucked it 6.3 times a game. So, at that rate, are you really missing that much shooting when it comes to Jalen Brunson? Now, I know I'm just comparing one season. That's a smaller sample size. They both have played 5 full seasons. Brunson hasn't played as much as Trae Young because he was a bench player for most of the time he was in Dallas, would fill in the starting 5 if Doncic was hurt or somebody else was hurt. Really not considered a three-point shooter, but can hit the three with pretty decent effectiveness. You're not exactly missing the shooting from Trae Young when you include Brunson. You're not missing the playmaking because you have Tyrese Halliburton. And I mean, that's not even to say Brunson did still have 6.2 assists per game. It's not like he's a terrible distributor. And he only turned the ball over 2.1 times a game compared to Trae Young's 4 point whatever a game. And if we take a look at usage, I mean, Brunson was at 27.2 and Trae was at 32.6. So Trae's usage, I mean, is always going to be higher. But you're turning the ball over less. You're still hitting almost the same amount of threes per game. You still have the playmaking because you have Tyrese Halliburton. And on top of that, your defense is a hell of a lot better. Because Trae Young, let's face it, is a liability on defense. If you have Trae Young on the floor, the rest of your team has to be able to play good defense. Has to. If you have another person on the floor that is another liability, your defense is getting shredded. Shredded. So if you have anybody else on that floor that can't pick up the slack, then you can score all you want, but you're probably giving up the same amount of points. And like I said, I'm not sitting here to say that Trae Young is, a bad point guard or bad player or anything like that. But even looking at defensive rating, his best one is 116. If we go to Brunson's second worst season is 116. His worst was last season at 117. But had 112, 114, 114. Meanwhile, Trae has, like I said, his best one was 116. He's at 117, 117, 118, 119. And his offensive rating actually is lower than Brunson's. And we can even look at player efficiency rating. That's another big stat that a lot of people like to look at, especially with Jokic and how advanced analytics have been really ramping up in the NBA. Brunson's better in the advanced analytics department. And I mean, I definitely could look up Tyrese Halliburton right now, but just based off of memory and eye test and everything, I'm perfectly fine with the decision to have Halliburton over Trae Young as well. Am I going to sit here and say Trae Young isn't one of the top point guards in the league? No, he still is a top point guard. But if you are building a team that you want to play as a team and give you everything on every side of the ball, including hustle plays, selflessness, and all of those intangibles included, I'm not picking Trae Young. I'm just not. If I'm going to pick a superstar that, like if you said pick a superstar that could be selfish and whatever, but like we just need that one that you're going to pick, I'm still not picking Trae Young. Because there are other guys that I think, even if they are selfish or whatever, would be a bigger impact to the team, whether it be on both sides of the ball or even a bigger impact just on offense. And that could be more efficient. I don't agree with Tim Bontemps fully because it really sounds like he's just hating. I mean, hating. But I can go look at the stats, bring up a lot of things that say the team that they put together right now is perfectly fine. They're good. They have a lot of guys that are going to fit together. Very good pieces that will fit together. And that's okay that it doesn't include Trae Young. It just is. If you put Trae Young on this team, would they maybe score a little more? Maybe. If you put Trae Young on this team, would the defense get worse? Definitely. Like, that's not even a question. The offense may get a little better, but you're kind of like, I mean, the offense is still good, regardless. But then you have to say the defense definitely gets worse if you're on the floor? Why are we making that move? Why are we throwing that in? Why are we actively making that side of the ball worse just to get maybe like a few more points a game? You might get, let's just say you get like 3, 4, or 5 more points a game. you're also probably giving up like 7, 8, 9 more points a game on the other side. Especially against the top countries that would be in this World Cup, against the Slovenians with Luka Doncic, against France, against, everybody that you're going to play that has the top talent. They're going to run through him like tissue paper. That's just what it is. But again, his offense is still one of the top offensive games of the guards in the league. I just like how the current team is built, and I think it's good. I think they don't need Trae Young. Trae Young isn't a necessity. Now, Kevin Durant. Yeah, let's throw in Kevin Durant. I'm down with that. That's a different animal. Throwing somebody like Kevin Durant, throwing somebody like LeBron James, throwing somebody like all that. Trae Young doesn't need to be there. He doesn't. Again, you can look up the stats. You can even look at eye tests and everything from this past season. And I'm just talking about this past season because, first off, Halliburton is so young that he doesn't have as much of a resume as either one of them. Brunson finally has been handed the reins as like a top 2 option on his team this past season, and he ran with it, and it turned in a outstanding season. And then Trae Young has been in the league for 5 years now. But yeah, I don't know. I don't exactly agree with Tim Bontemps. However, I'm perfectly fine with him not being good enough to be on Team USA right now. Perfectly fine with that. I don't know. You guys let me know. Let me know down in the comments what you think about that decision to not have Trae Young. Do you think Trae Young should be on over one of the 2 point guards that are on the team already? And give me your reasoning. Don't just say, "Oh, shut up. These guys are trash. Trae Young's better." Give me some solid reasons. I love to debate it if there's good evidence, if there's reasons for it. So let me know. On Spotify, you can even type it into the little, if you go to the episode, there's like a little Q&A thing on the episode. You can type it in there and we see it, and it's on the episode page, and we can even talk about it there. So let me know. Check it out. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, everywhere you get your podcasts. I appreciate you guys. That is it for me this week. Next week, I'll be back with at least Dennis, probably Mike as well. Maybe we'll get some guests on here too. We know that there are some people that we work with at Roto Baller, some great basketball minds and fantasy basketball minds specifically, that we will get on here for sure. So thank you everybody for listening, and I will catch you guys next week. Peace.